Hey everybody, I'm here today to tell you how to deal with stress. I'll be going over 3 simple steps that you can use to reduce stress and manage stress. Let's get right to it. Stress is unavoidable. You're always going to encounter stress, but it's a matter of how you deal with stress, because you can encounter a situation that is this stressful or this stressful. Let's get right to it. Step number 1 is identify the worst case scenario. So figure out what is the absolute worst case scenario that will be the outcome of the stressful situation that you're in. Because most of the time you think that the worst case scenario is actually horrible, but when you actually identify what it is and you narrow it down to the absolute worst case scenario, you realize that it's not that bad. Step number 2 is figure out which of the factors in the situation are controllable and which ones are completely out of your hands. Oftentimes, in a stressful situation, certain factors are absolutely uncontrollable. You cannot affect them in any way, and certain factors are controllable. You can do something to affect the outcome. Step number 3 is take those actions to help avoid the worst case scenario. So once you have identified the controllable factors, you want to take the appropriate actions to control those factors to avoid the absolute worst case scenario. So let's go over these steps really quickly, and then I'm also going to reiterate with a specific example that I'm going to come up with, a hypothetical example. So once again, step number 1 is identify the worst case scenario. Step number 2 is figure out which factors are uncontrollable and which factors are controllable. Step number 3 is take the appropriate actions to control those controllable factors, okay? That's the simple 3-step process. Now let's go over a hypothetical example. Let's say that you're driving to work and you are caught in traffic, okay? So, step number 1 would be identify the absolute worst case scenario. So you're going to figure out, in the worst case scenario, how late am I going to be for work? Okay? Step number 2, identify which factors are controllable and which ones are uncontrollable. So obviously, you might be able to take a detour, but if you can't take a detour, a controllable factor will be to call your work and let them know that you might be late. That'll sort of get you some bonus points, and it will sort of reduce the worst case scenario. It will prevent you from the absolute worst case scenario, which is you show up half an hour late, you didn't give them notice, you miss your client, and you now have a strike under your name, or you get fired, or you get under a suspension, or whatever the case is. If you call in, that's a controllable factor. It will reduce the chances of you actually getting to that worst case scenario. Step number 3 is take action. You're going to go ahead and call your work, or you're going to do whatever it takes to control the situation as much as possible. So once again, that is how to deal with stress. Stressful situations are absolutely inevitable and unavoidable. You're going to encounter them no matter what you do, no matter what situation you're in. The key is to deal with those stressful situations as nicely as possible. And I've outlined 3 simple steps that you can use to deal with those stressful situations, to manage stress and reduce stress. And that's basically it. Use these 3 steps to greatly manage and reduce your stress in your stressful situations. And that's it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. Comment below to let me know what you think. And above all, please be sure to subscribe. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.